It's 8:01. I would like to call the Town of Stockbridge Bowl Stewardship Commission meeting to order for August 5th. The first item on our agenda is to approve the July 15th, 2022 minutes. And does anybody have any comments or questions?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Okay, well, I've got actually a couple of issues. Number one, we just have to change committee to commission at the top. On the other hand, what I've noticed is there isn't much fleshing out. For instance, JW added some comments to this and said how a list can be made up on his end. So what were those comments? Pat Kennelly made some suggestions. Well, we don't know what those are because they're not here. So I need to talk to Tammy and just say, you know, that's not adequate. You've got to put something in terms of what the meat and potatoes are when you make that. And it can be brief, but you know, it's kind of scattered throughout. So I'm going to have to talk to her and just make sure that we get at least enough details. So if someone reads the minutes, they actually know what was discussed.
Motion to table.
So, okay.
Just wait till.
I will wait.
Okay. Let's see. The next thing is discussing correction of previously approved minutes. And we had minutes that were approved for March 18th. And I know Michael and I had not seen them. And Michael asked if we could just wait, and a vote had been taken and they were approved. I had Tammy go back, watch the video, write the minutes, because I had one problem with those particular minutes. And there was a statement that I said something that I certainly didn't say. I've watched the video and I would like that corrected for the record.
And did Tammy not write those minutes?
No.
Oh, okay.
Tammy did not. Jamie wrote those minutes. So anyway, I had Tammy go out, watch the video, write minutes. And I've got those. So I would like to make a motion that for the next meeting, we all review Tammy's write-up and then we replace and make
So
sure.
will you send us those minutes or?
I will send them to you.
Will you also note the change, where the change is? Or should we not even go there?
Well, we can.
I mean, it just makes it easier for.
That's pretty.
Well, I mean,
Well,
for
I'd
us
have to
reviewing them.
We'd have to review two things to see if you could just,
Well, I can send you both. I can send you, here's.
you know what I mean? Otherwise
Has been
yeah.
written.
All right, whatever you wish.
The only question I have in it is, and I just maybe address this with Michael is, as the composition of the board has changed and the prior board had approved the minutes, I just want to make sure that legally we have the authority to modify minutes
I
or
have
previously
checked,
approved.
and this is according to Donna Brewer, that a motion though, however, needs to be made to make a modification to relook at specific minutes that have already been approved. So that's what I'm making a motion to do.
And Donna said that was okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So do I have a second?
You have a second?
All those in favor?
Hi.
Right.
We're not approving them. Yeah, okay, sure. I'm just looking.
Okay. So moving on, now we can get to the important stuff. Reviewing the draft of the Lake and Watershed Management Plan. Now, this was sent to you all. I received this, I think, on the 27th. I think I got it all out to you at least by the 28th or the 29th. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see it, but we can walk through this. I can do a share screen and we can start trying to walk through this and determine what our next steps are.
Good.
That's not the right file.
I'm just wondering, like when you go to a doctor, you go whatever, you get a second opinion. Could we get like maybe someone that knows our lake that knows it much better than I do or has done these things, of what maybe we should be looking at and what we shouldn't who's our limnologist? What's his name?
Corbin?
Yeah. Will he be seeing this?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
As part of this.
All right. Oh, well, then there's no need for that.
Here. Got it? I'm having trouble moving it around, but this is it. So, his first thing that's highlighted, he just wants to make sure he has the name of the commission correct, which is fine. Scrolling down. And this is the summary. Anybody who's read this is a very comprehensive report.
Yeah.
And I've read most of it, a lot of it in detail. Let's see, page 2. I think I had a comment. He's got a summary of specific management efforts or plans by stakeholders will go here. So I think this is basically, we're representative of the stakeholders. So the other way this could be worded is by the town or by this commission and its partners or something to that effect.
And this is what, the fourth paragraph you're looking at?
Yeah, he's just saying a summary of specific management efforts or plans by
Page 2.
stakeholders will go here. So it's like this little place saver,
Yeah.
but that's fine. I mean, it's like basically we're going to come up with that because we're the ones that are representing the stakeholder groups.
Yeah, can we just talk about that for a second? I like putting that in there because this quickly gets, as a working kind of document, I think it needs a stronger summary of what our priorities are in terms of what our concerns are and then what our recommended interventions are to address those concerns.
What they're saying, that
Yeah.
there are pieces that we have to fill in here. And
But-
clearly that's going to happen in a lot of different categories and a lot of different levels of detail.
Right. But I guess my question on that is, why are us as the body of lay people filling in details of what the priorities should be and what the recommended interventions are? Isn't that what we hired GZA to do? I mean,
I thought we gave him that.
no, priorities and interventions are basically what our action plan is, and I think the experts should drive that. And that's what I don't find in this document so far is their recommendations of like what it is we're doing.
I mentioned that to
Yeah,
Roxanne.
no, yeah.
We decide what our priorities and objectives and goals are. They are our consultants and we will consult with them in terms of what they believe the best plan of action or course of action is. But a great deal of this is the town deciding, this group deciding, the stakeholders deciding what are our priorities. If our priority for all the stakeholders is we have to expand the sewer, then that's a town objective. That's something that we will undertake if that's determined, but they can't tell us that.
That's not,
They will
that,
give us their recommendations and if you read through this,
I read,
they have
yes, I read the whole thing.
referenced all the different sources of information, all the different studies that have been done.
I printed out the parts of those studies that I thought were relevant to this discussion, Roxanne. Yes, I came in prepared. I just simply, the point I'm making is that the town's decision to use sewer, one of the benefits or one of the reasons to do it is the lake, but that's a political decision. What we're looking for here is a scientific evaluation of what our issues are and a set of the scientists' recommendations on what the best strategies to implement those. And I give you a couple examples. So for example, in the LICOT study, they talk extensively on page 99 and 100 about how a moderate to extensive harvesting program is probably the best way to reduce phosphorus from the lake. All right. And the benefits of reducing phosphorus in the lake, of course, is less macrophytes, less plants. I think there's some really interesting stuff in some of the prior reports that should inform from a scientific basis what what our priorities should be, which is reducing nutrients, controlling cyanobacteria, and improving recreation. So if we say that those are, our three goals of this report or, or of this plan, then taking a look at what the specific priorities are. I mean, there's been many laundry lists, including this one and this one, of what our various potential interventions are.
Well, Patrick, before you were on the commission, this body actually did vote on our priorities. So we have already accomplished that. The point of the lake management plan is that it's a living document. GZA, our relationship with GZA is they come out, we're doing the annual sampling on a monthly basis. And they're collecting data. The lake management plan is kind of the framework for how we're going to move forward and what.
So what are the priorities?
We've already defined our priorities.
Can we just review what the priorities are? Get me up to speed.
I would think you would be up to speed, but the number one priority was dredging.
That's not,
And he
okay.
references it in here. So if we can just keep moving through this and try to get through this,
Okay.
we will come to that because he's got it in here. And I think our number 2 and 3 were weed harvesting, had to do with aquatic plant control. And number 4 was the expansion of the sewer, just in a nutshell.
I just have a comment, and in number 2, they talk about nuisance, although if I keep commenting and everybody keeps commenting, we'll not go through 60 pages, but talk about nuisance, but it's basically based on milfoil, invasives. And I would just like to add, if that's possible, to recreation or to also just nuisance, non-invasive, just whatever. I don't know how you word it or whatever, or if it's that important, but
Overgrowth of non-invasives.
something to the effect. I feel like everything here is about milfoil, where,
Invasive, like he's saying of invasive aquatic macrophytes.
yeah,
And it isn't necessarily just invasive.
yeah, yeah. Because this lake is really, I always say, a tale of two lakes. There's north of the island and south of the island. So I just want to make sure that
Okay.
the rest of the island gets also taken care of.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that too, and it also would seem very specific to Eurasian water milfoil,
Yeah,
but
it
that would
just-
not always be
Right.
the invasive species we're worried about. So
Right.
those kinds of things I think should be generic enough, general enough to cover if we get a new invasive species.
Look, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm just gonna make one point, then I'll shut up. This is a document that is a good roadmap for the town, but also in some ways, more importantly, it is a tool that will be used by regulators to evaluate what our roadmap is, all right? And to justify what our roadmap is. We can't approach this from a point of view of, here's the 3 things we want to do, and we wrote this thing to justify it. It will fail. That's not how, let me just finish, Roxanne.
It's a living document. This will change.
I'm not making a point. Let me finish and I'll make my point. All right. We can't start at the end. We want to dredge. We want to harvest. We want to hand pull weeds. Because if we do that, all we're doing is then going through an exercise in their minds, these scientists' minds, these people who work at DEP and NGSP, our scientists, we're saying we started here and then we backfilled it to justify those 3 things we wanted to do. Harvesting, we're doing harvesting because it controls nuisance weeds. It controls some of the invasives, and it removes phosphorus from the lake. We're doing dredging because it increases the depth of the water and keeps the water cold and reduces the chance of cyanobacteria. We're doing these things because there's a prior justification of them. And I think it's really important that up front, we talk about those justifications so that when we come to the conclusion of the interventions that we want to do, there is a scientific basis for those. And if we organize it in the opposite way, like that our priorities are these 3 things, then we're kind of getting it backwards, in my opinion.
All right, well, we're talking about, these people do this for a living. These are the consultants that we've hired. This is a standardized format that they recommend, and particularly for going out to obtain grant monies. So let's just get through it because this is a living document. It can always change. Okay, so page 2. Let me see. Yeah, I think after this, there isn't a whole lot. I do have the date of when one of the date plugs in. And the commission was actually voted in on 6/12/2021, so I've got that info for him.
I think there was a comment in the chat about something on the screen. I thought Sally might have said something if you.
Oh, I'm not looking over there. Is Sally here? Yes, Sally is here.
I thought I saw a comment about.
Sally?
Hey,
Hi, do you have a comment?
yeah, so it's okay now, except that it's really small and hard to read. So I've put up my my document that you sent, so I'm trying to follow along, but I'm having a little bit of trouble with doing that. Okay, that's good. Yeah, thanks. And I have to say that that I agree with Patrick. I think you do need to have, this is just, from my conservation point of view. I think you do need to justify it from a scientific point of view, as well as your goal point of view, because someday we may have to defend it.
Well, I think my impression, okay, in going over this, and I haven't had a lot of time to go through this, but they are also incorporating all the various studies that have been done. And within those studies, there is a recommendation to do dredging. There is a recommendation and a statement that this may actually reduce the internal loading of the phosphorus.
It's all in the Lycott study. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Studies. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here in terms of we have to do this, we have to do that. I think first step is let's try to get through here and plug in, be able to turn around the information to GCA so they can plug it all in here. That's the next step.
So first of all, Sally, welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to welcome, we all want to welcome you. Yeah.
Your approval is on the agenda for August 11th, so as far as I'm concerned.
Can I just backtrack? A summary of specific management efforts or plans by stakeholders will go here. Can you give me an example of what they want from us in that?
Where is this? Going back to.
Yeah, I apologize, but all of a sudden I realized they're asking us to give them information, or they're not, or is it information they already have that they're going to put in there? Because as you said, we already gave them this. So are they asking it for it again, or are they just saying, we just haven't put it in here, but we have it? Or we don't know the answer to that?
Well, I'm going to have to talk to him about it and see if he wants what we've given them reformatted. And my suspicion is the various sections of this document are looking for different levels of detail and different formats. So some of these are going to be just narratives.
Yeah.
And like we talked about after the last meeting, you had the perfect sentence for whatever it was they wanted from you guys.
Oh, like the Water and Sewer Commission.
Water and sewer.
Yeah.
But some of it's going to be narrative, i.e. some of it may be justification, as Patrick's talking about and Sally's pointing out. Some of it's going to be in a table. Some of it's going to be a timeline. I think as we go through this, it'll be a little clearer.
Can you ask them what they mean by
A lot of
this?
information to digest.
Will you ask them what they mean by this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, but moving on, thank you, Sally, for your comment. And yeah, I don't disagree. I just would like to get through determining what information they still need from us. And I may need to get a little more specificity about the format and specifically what they're looking for. This part just needs to be cleaned up. Board of Health is no longer Charlie Kenny, so this information I can turn around to. And let's see. He makes a lot of comments.
No, Water Sewer. Jim Willis is.
Oh, Jim Willis is the new Board of Health.
Jim Willis.
Oh, so you
Board of
just
Health
fixed
is
that.
Voting member.
Right.
Yep. And then Tri-Town, that's to be determined in terms of, does he want someone else from Tri-Town here?
Yeah.
Or does that get changed? Let's see, and then he goes on, let's see, the other part I found interesting, the SBSC reached out to other stakeholders for information and feedback, including the Highway Department, Parks and Rec, Camp Mackinac, Tanglewood, and he's got question marks after all these.
Have we done that?
And it was homeowners and residents.
Well, I think missing from that should also, I know it should be the SBA,
Yeah, the SBA should be on here.
right?
I think the point was that they weren't relisting folks who were in 1 through 7 above. I don't think they were citing the SBA. They were
Oh,
just
you're
saying
probably
SBA is
right.
already at the
You're probably
table.
right. Yeah.
I think Kripalu in the state of Massachusetts should be on it though, because of the boat ramp.
Well, here's what I think. I think basically there's a lot of different stakeholder groups around the lake.
Yeah.
Now, this group, we're semi-representative. We don't represent everybody, and we don't represent the general public. I think rather than what they have here, we can say the SBSC maybe will, on a regular basis, reach out to other stakeholders and then include Tanglewood, Mackinac Terrace, Mackinac Heights, Mackinac Shores, et cetera, et cetera. All those various groups that may want to, who already have representatives in various places, like to the SBA, and may want to contribute, and that's fine. And all those different groups can be incorporated into this.
Yeah, and the SBA board actually is really well representative of the stakeholder groups in general. I think you could add the state of Massachusetts, like I said, because of the boat ramp. But if you want, I'd be happy to work with you on a survey that we could just maybe provide via those representatives to their groups and see if we could get like some information back just as a way to kind of streamline, because I think there's 10 or 15 stakeholders on your board. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot,
It's a lot.
Yeah.
White
But it's
Pines,
pretty much
Laurel
inclusive
Hill.
of everybody around the lake.
Yeah, so I mean, what do you think of maybe a survey or something, a simple survey?
I think
Just,
we're gonna get to that later on, the public education part, which,
but education is after, Roxanne. This is like stakeholders are input.
well, yeah, I get that. Yes, I don't disagree with you. I'm gonna make a note though in a different part of this because I think it's more applicable to like education, blah, blah, blah. Because I was gonna talk about the SBA maybe helping us with that because Pat's offered. This is another aspect of,
Okay.
let's do surveys. But I think all those groups it shouldn't just be the SBA because all these people have representatives on the SBA. I think it's important that we do recognize each one of these groups individually, including the SBA.
Yeah.
So that can all be done. That's just a list. It's pretty simple. And then I questioned, they had a whole list here. This whole list of various reports that have been done.
But so do we know what the method of outreach is going to be for these stakeholder groups? Because that is the precursor before we can finish this. So it just strikes me as this kind of,
I thought you just offered to take care of that.
I said we might do a survey, but is that all you want to do? Is that,
For this, it might be all you want to do.
yeah. I mean,
I mean, that's,
Otherwise, we'll go
and
crazy.
obviously, everyone can be encouraged to come to these meetings.
Yeah.
Everyone can attend these meetings. These are public meetings, so, and that's fine.
all right.
But, yeah. Anyway, we got a lot to get through. I'm not trying to,
We don't have to get through it all today, though. I mean,
well, I want to get through a lot of this because,
All right.
I want to keep making progress. Anyway, so we've got these 17 things. I was a little concerned. At some point, I did find Tom Coo's plant survey of one of the 2 years that he's done it. But every report that's ever done is basically going to be incorporated into this.
Roxanne,
Yep,
can I ask, because we're still missing the 2018 submerged aquatic vegetative survey
okay,
that I forwarded a couple of times, because frankly, it's the most complete plant inventory we've ever done.
okay.
And I can send it to you again.
2018,
Yeah, submerged aquatic vegetative survey.
yep. Okay,
And I will send it to you again.
okay. Did you send it to,
I know I sent it to Jamie and, it somehow didn't make the list.
oh, okay, no, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
That's why we're
it's
going over
important and
this.
it's comprehensive.
anything else that we see that's missing at any point, just let me know.
Yeah.
Let's see, summary of completed work. Let me see. I mean, this all looked pretty good to me. One thing is, they talk about the presence of cyanobacteria and dense beds of Eurasian water milfoil and Cara. And the one thing is, I think that should probably be qualified. I don't know how to word it, scattered dense beds, sporadic dense beds. The dense beds are not everywhere.
Well, this was 1971. They could have been in 1971. That's the whole point of the report. It was a moment in time.
Okay, they're just quoting?
Yeah, they're basically summarizing the reports from that.
Summarizing.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be much worse. There were many more nutrients in the
I remember it
lake.
being much worse, so-
Yeah.
Okay, all right, ignore that. Let's see.
Yeah, one of the things, just as an aside, I thought they did extraordinarily well was roll up these reports, that are literally hundreds of pages,
Yeah.
into 3 paragraphs that really hit the highlights of them. I thought they did an excellent job of that.
Yep, and then they're doing the LICOT here on the next page on 7, so they're quoting from that.
So,
They talk about, here were some of the recommendations.
yeah,
Manage deep water anoxia.
right,
And one of them is hypolimnetic aeration.
Right,
Which we want to talk to Dr. Cortman about. This is one of his areas of expertise. He's pretty
It's been kind of written off.
innovative, but it would be an interesting thing to get his feedback.
is that
on it.
fall in my favor? This aeration?
It's in one of those reports, but it's been downplayed. Am I right, Mike?
I'm not sure where you are in this.
Page
A long
7.
time ago.
This is the LICOT environmental research, and they're giving a little summarization.
It's just that people can't really hear you when you talk if you
Oh,
don't.
I'm sorry, what I just wanted to say about aeration is the 2021 survey that GZA did, the water survey, that's one of the things that they talk about as a potential recommendation. So I'm just saying, in the latest survey,
Yeah.
GZA talked about that as a technique.
Right. So that's something at some point we should follow up, and I think we should follow up with Dr. Cortman, because quite frankly, he's talked about this and he's invented various ingenious
I agree.
ways to
That
do
was
it.
very curious.
So it'll be an interesting one. Let's see, keep going, because I don't know that there's anything, I think we all need to take a lot of time, but this is all just going through all these old,
It's 49, isn't it?
all the historic reports. So if anybody sees anything.
Well, on page 9, just a minor point, and it could be correct. They talk about, and it doesn't matter, about 20,000 cubic yards. So I'm not sure if they got that from GZA, but we're looking at like 40,000 cubic yards.
On page 9, but what was that in regards
Last,
to?
fourth sentence from the bottom.
Let's see.
It may just maybe put a question
It's
mark.
from 2014, though.
Yeah, but it's still the same. 2014 is modern times of this project, believe it or not.
Well, but we have a new number.
Oh, we do?
It
Okay.
shows up later, yeah.
All right. I just didn't want there to be a conflict with, at that time it was 20,000 and whatever, and then it becomes 40 to 50,000 type of thing.
Okay.
Maybe this is fine. I'm just bringing it up that it caught my eye.
And this PDF, if you access the PDF online, they're all links to these reports. They've also posted the reports online. And if you're interested in this aeration, it's pages 80 through 82 on the LICOT study. It's like 200 pages long. So, just like those 3 pages are the really interesting part on aeration.
And then another thing that I found interesting, let me see where they are here. Under general watershed information, which was page 14. There's a comment in here. And it says,
With 14?
a second paragraph. Let's see.
Are you on page 14 of the new study of the lake management report?
Yep. Let me see. Anyway, it looks different on my printout. But anyway, the watershed, where the paragraph that starts, the watershed is characterized by light to medium density residential housing present along the western, southern, and southeastern portions. And I'm wondering how they're characterizing light to medium.
Have you ever been to Revere, Mass? That's heavy.
I was just curious.
I'm just saying, it's like, we don't have any high rises.
How do you put any more in there?
This isn't heavy relatively,
No, yeah.
You're right. Revere, my brother lives there.
Can you go back to page 8 though for a second, 8 and 9?
Yeah,
I think that especially page 9, actually, where there's I think if we're going to list all the things we decided to do 10 years ago, we might want to include like some of the ones we actually did, which are on there. So it doesn't look like we kind of just came up with a report and did nothing. It's a really good list, but I just feel like sort of it makes it seem like we kind of, didn't necessarily kind of follow through. And I don't think that's fair to the town or fair to the group.
You're talking about
Example?
this,
Yeah, the status, like, for example, it says, West Shoreline high priority actions, design and construct stormwater runoff controls of the public boat launch. Well, we actually have asked the state to help us with that. Work with landowners for soils adjacent to the shore. We did that with Jane. Remove a small stand of fragmites. I don't believe we've done that yet.
Where are we?
I'm at the bottom of the West Shoreline high priority actions, for example.
the second one is work with landowners that have exposed soils adjacent to shoreline. And then you said,
Yeah, when Jane redid that property, she addressed a lot of those issues.
when who?
Jane Iredale.
Oh,
This is next to the boat launch.
yeah,
I'm just saying that, like, if you go through every one list starting at the top, we've made progress on a number of these fronts, and it isn't necessarily indicative that we were taking action based on our prior plans, just reading the laundry list.
Okay.
And I just thought it maybe like promote us a little bit better.
I don't know if at some point buried in here, there may be something that addresses
Right.
this. But if it isn't in there,
Yeah, you know
then
what
we
I'm
can
saying,
make sure
right.
it gets included in terms of the more recent projects that are either
i.e.
the current underway, that should be definitely
Right.
included. But recent things that we have accomplished, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have, but I'm thinking they may be buried in here somewhere.
Right. But, and then some of the other ones, I think that it merits consideration, especially with, like you guys, for example, like we just did the culvert assessment town-wide. This Bullard Crossing undersized culvert, I didn't even know we had one there, but I'm sure that, Allison knows. But should we try to bump that up the list? Because there's money right now for culvert grants. Some of these we might want to also just kind of go back and do a quick review of and say, is there anything on here that we want to renew our emphasis on, just as a general
Well,
strategy?
that was one thing, at some other point I had written
Okay.
a note about this, the MVP program. And
Right.
have we done any culvert activity that impacts the lake that we want to include in here? And then obviously,
Right.
if there's more we can do.
They're replacing the Hawthorne one, it looks like this year, or, we
Right.
got a big grant to do that, but,
Right, okay. All right, moving on. How are we doing for time? Not too bad. Okay, let me see. Page. It's page 26, maybe.
What page?
23, page 23.
Yeah, there I have a comment also, as we
and
mentioned.
on page 15, before you get there, we have when I was on Concom, we came across at least a couple of cesspools around the lake, not just sewer, not just septic, and I think we should mention that. It goes to the heart of, I know, like there's one right over by you on Lake Drive.
What's there?
Actually, two of them, I think, cesspools,
There's
the old
two.
type of septics.
Oh,
Yeah, gross, like
Yeah,
they're
well-
grandfathered, basically,
yeah, until they're sold.
Until they're
So we
sold.
had a discussion here before.
Yeah.
About that we should be looking at every house and just
Yeah.
making some kind of survey of what house has what.
It says we assume the remaining properties use septic systems on page 15, and I'm just pointing out that that is not universally true.
Where is this?
Page 15, the end of the second paragraph.
Hang on.
It was with Jim Willis.
But again, it was at the time it was written back.
No, this
No,
is the
this is-
summary. This is page 15. This is like the lake management plan itself.
Yeah, I think it's really important in
Yes,
general.
I noted that too.
Yeah. Just saying, yeah.
I was like, gonna
We were worried
just cross out the words "we assume."
Yeah, well, I would say the vast majority are septic.
Right.
But the other thing is that a lot of folks, as they've been rebuilding, have put in tight tanks or other more advanced septic systems. And I think we could also, once again, all septic's not the same. And there may be a little few that are cesspools, which is terrible, but there's also a whole bunch that are much more modern and much less impactful on the lake. Something like a tight tank, we might just want
You don't want a tight
to
tank.
flesh that out a little bit. you know?
Well, I think in our last meeting, Jim Willis said something about putting together a list.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I, especially for Lake Drive,
It's just,
that's not town water and it's the largest association of most homes around the lake.
that are not on sewer or that it's general.
And they're not, that are not on sewer, absolutely.
But it's bigger than Beechwood, is it? I don't know. I'm not-
No, it's the second largest.
Oh, okay.
Beechwood is, it's the largest that doesn't have town septic,
Okay.
is what I'm saying. It's the largest
How many
association.
units are? there?
38, I think. something.
White Pine says what, 60, so you're.
But you're
third
on,
largest.
are you on town?
No, no,
Oh, you're
no,
not
no.
either, okay.
Stopped at the cause.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, then I'm corrected, the second largest. But I think it's important to know which houses don't have,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. All right, moving on. Back to page 23. Let me see. Town to provide agreed upon goals and reference stakeholders involved. Examples below. Control of nuisance, this I thought was strange, number one. Control of nuisance plant density and outlet channel via dredging. That's not the actual purpose of the dredging. It's a side effect of the dredging.
Yeah, it's dredging isn't, that's not the reason. Well, originally, no, it wasn't nuisance. It was invasive originally, was the dredging. Was part of, there was two parts of the dredging. Of course, we have to dredge or else it'll fill up and become wetlands. But also because originally when we could do a 5.5-foot drawdown, then the idea was that it would control the invasives, not the nuisance
Right.
type of thing. But now with the 1.9 drawdown that NHESP has imposed, dredging takes on another meaning onto itself of the health of the lake. So I think you're right. You have to change that first sentence and correct it for them.
Conservation has come back and said zero drawdown.
All right, no problem. No, I'm saying the NHESP, we have not done it for 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that number one, I agree with you, Roxanne, has to be changed.
Yeah. To do regular mechanical harvesting for the erosion.
And also reduction of whatever that is.
The water chestnuts. And
Number two. No, number two, I
number
apologize.
two, that's erosion water.
Yeah, so that is also what we were talking about. That is also a dual project of the harvester. Is not only Eurasian milfoil, but also recreational clearing of
Right,
crazy overgrowth.
right. It just needs to be reworded.
Yeah,
Page 22 and 23 are the entire justification for going through this exercise and all these interventions we're doing. So you start at watershed on page 22, and it talks about two things, sedimentation and phosphorus loading, okay? And then it draws the conclusions about why those are bad, all right? And then similarly on page 2, I think that I would take out the part under number 2, littoral zone, that the current
wait,
status.
hold on a second. You're going way too fast for us to follow.
Okay.
You're.
So go back to
for me,
page 22. Sorry about that. So page 22, you've got, the first thing is watershed, and they say that phosphorus loading and sedimentation are the two big problems.
Right.
That's right. That then justifies the interventions that we want to do. Now, in the second part of the three legs, the littoral zone, which is like the plant area around the lake, in addition to the watershed, it says the issues there are these. Basically, what's the problem with the plants? Nuisance. But one thing they say in there, which I disagree with, is thus the current status of M. spicatum, which is milfoil, as a management priority for Stockbridge Bowl is unclear. I don't think that's true. I think that ensuring that milfoil does not spread is a management priority for the Stockbridge Bowl, whether or not it's a problem this second or not.
Well, no, but then you need to read this next sentence. And this is the justification that you were saying that we needed to do that.
I
was in
understand
here.
it.
So
I
it is
understand
in
it.
here.
Yeah.
But his next sentence says, it should be noted that nuisance macrophyte conditions also result from diverse assemblages of macrophytes that are not dominated by M. spicatum, but instead consist of native and non-native species.
Right. I would say spicatum, let's call the whole thing off.
Yeah.
All right, no,
is that under littoral zone that you were?
Yes.
yeah, that's under number 2, but
Why do you?
M.
think-
spicatum is not nuisance, it is invasive. So the next thing about nuisance is fine, but I don't think that we should suggest that we're removing. In fact, I think we should add the water chestnut into that line and say that we are carefully monitoring the question of invasives, and it should go right into that littoral zone section,
Right,
you know?
okay.
Also, Roxanne, I think the last sentence in that number 2 about occurs in the outlet, we've got issues in beyond the outlet with nuisance and other things as well.
Right, so that's just strike the sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got to put in, I don't know, I don't totally understand, but nuisances, well, invasives and non-invasives. It's got to be, both have to be in there.
And for different reasons.
For absolutely different reasons, right?
Right, so I think it needs
Yeah.
to be
Invasives
clarified
and
a little bit.
nuisance,
Yeah,
overgrowth of natural weeds.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so can we now, on page 23, the management targets outlined. I think those are all good targets, but I don't think those sell this management plan as well as it could.
I agree.
All right, so if this is halfway down page 23. It says out of the potential management targets outlined. All right.
Okay,
All right, so I go back to this is a regulatory, this is a document that we use for regulatory evaluation, and I don't think the first thing should be nuisance vegetation. I think the first thing should be cyanobacteria control, because harvesting takes out phosphorus and dredging makes the water colder, and those two things will help protect us. And I think that on that point, before we get there, we should point out the massive unthinkable consequences if we have regular expanded cyanobacteria outbreaks like they've had in many lakes south of us. Like as you go further down the United States, many lakes became unusable because of these regular giant cyanobacteria outbreaks. I think that preventing those is the singular justification for expanded harvesting as LICOT calls for on page 100, and for the dredging because it creates colder water and basically reduces like that, you know, whatever that kind of hypolimnium is, the stratification. So I think we really should put cyanobacteria right at the top because it's the thing that justifies the two interventions that we really want to focus on the next year, which is dredging and harvesting.
I don't agree with that totally, but I really feel that you can't just put that as the heavyweight of why we're doing dredging, because it's not generally. I think that helps reduce the probability of cyanobacteria.
Yeah.
But dredging also has issues going into the future of the health of the lake on so many levels, on a natural level of
Right.
taking oxygen out. If that becomes silted in, if that whole area becomes wetlands or whatever, the whole lake, the whole future of that lake is going to be changed, fishing wise and what, and adding cyanobacteria. I'm not saying you shouldn't give it,
Right.
but you're gambling if you say that's the reason and they
No,
have a
but there's
different.
9 things on there. I just think it should not be the 8th or 9th. I think it should be with the 1st or 2nd is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be the main reason we're doing dredging. It should be among the top 3 maybe reasons, you know,
Yeah.
together, but not just that is, and that's why we're doing this.
my concern about this whole thing is about water quality goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These 4 things are not water
That's
quality
right.
related. Number 5, reduce anoxia at depth. Yeah, absolutely. Mike, you can
Well, yeah.
speak up anytime here.
I think that maybe those should be bullet points rather than numbered. They're all important, but water quality, yeah, the anoxia is. We can also use the lake if there's weeds and it's not dredged. We can,
Right.
if there's a cyanobacteria outbreak,
Right.
so.
Right, so I think this needs some work in terms
Yeah.
of focusing on what are the actual water quality goals. These might be secondary, and these are take part in, you know, some of the issues that are.
Well, if they call these water quality goals, then, I mean, I think I read through most of it and it's probably there. We gave them a timeline or what we thought were, and I thought that's what they put in here. When you specifically say water quality, maybe we should change the word water to lake quality or something.
This section is about water quality. This section
The whole
is,
section is?
it's
So-
watershed.
This-
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
It's management
right.
issues, you
Yeah.
know.
So, I mean, I just think this has to
Yeah.
be reworked and it needs to be moved to somewhere.
All right, I'm sorry.
And let's also remember that one of the goals here is to get more than 10 acres of harvesting, right? So
Wait,
like,
slow down. That's not determined. Who determined that? We have not yet discussed this. in
Well,
terms-
let's keep going with this.
okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Roxanne, now, are we going to restructure this whole bullet point, or are we going to expect GCA to do that for us?
Well, I'll get back and I'll talk to Steve Roy and say, how do you want me to do this? If you want me to tweak this.
Yeah, I
with
mean,
my
somebody's gotta
comments,
make the
I can
decision.
do that.
That we're
Make
discussing
sure it's
today.
done, that's all.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of getting it done. So as long as I can do that and then put comments in and then come back to you with a modified version.
Yeah.
You know, we all then review it again. But everything else that's on there, like 5 through 9, those are all specific
Yeah.
water quality goals. So that's all fine. And that's from 314 CMR 4. So, that's all regulatory stuff.
Do the like Beechwood Beach and White Pines, do they have to do the E. coli testing or no, because they're private?
Beechwood does, but I don't think White Pines does.
You
I don't
know,
know where
Might be
Jim does, because Jim does several places around.
Yeah.
everyone here, not everyone, but we were talking about, this is about water quality, but if you read his note by Steve Roy, it says the SBSC needs to discuss and agree on these or similar target goals by priority. Dredging has already been selected as number 1 priority, with plants next. So I'm wondering if he's putting in here what we gave him a priority, but putting it under water quality, which may be I don't know exactly how to explain
I
this.
think it's apples and oranges. I
Yes,
think that's
that's-
what he's doing. He's conflating two things. Because you've
Yeah.
got water quality goals, but then you've got how to address specific issues.
Other than just water quality.
Right, other than water. quality.
Yes,
Water
so the
quality is-
water quality is what makes me nervous that he puts that as the title when I don't know, you may want to talk to him about that, because what he's saying on the side is, he's talking that these are the things that we gave him, but he's putting them under water quality.
Right.
And I'm not sure.
And that was
should-
that's
and-
not our intent.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And Roxanne, I think in the beginning, when you first gave, the first overview before we got this, I think they divided things into 3 buckets, basically water quality being 1, and then management of the lake in terms of
Right.
flora and fauna being 2, and then I think the third one was an overarching watershed. And I think they broke it down into 3 buckets that would be addressed
Right,
individually. And I think that's what you're all saying here needs to be overlaid.
right,
Yeah, they put everything, lumped it all together.
yeah. All right, let's see, next page, let's see how much we can get through here.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
Sally, I think that when you're listing your priorities, I think you need to keep in mind that ultimately it's going to have to go through the Conservation Commission and DEP to be done. So the justification for doing a lot of the things that you are proposing to do, or we are proposing to do, is has got to be the quality of the lake, because when it comes down to the regulations that are going to say whether this is possible or not possible, the Conservation Commission and DEP don't care about the people that live around the lake. The thing that they're going to be, I mean, not that they don't care, but that's not what they're required to look at. What they're required to look at is the quality of the lake itself. So I think that you need to keep in mind that that's what the Conservation Commission and DEP are going to make their determination on. It's not going to be recreational.
Okay. Yep, good point.
Sally, I think in credit to this committee, I think probably if you look at the listings, the top 2 and the top one, dredging, which I think is what we were all sort of agreement, hopefully falls under the long-term health of the bowl itself. That one project.
It does, and you and I
Yeah.
have talked about this extensively, and
Right.
I agree with you, and
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm
Right.
just saying that when you list your priorities, I think it's really important to think about it from the health of the lake and how it supports the habitat in the lake, how it supports the the not having cyanobacteria, not having invasive
Right.
species. In terms of the recreation, that's lovely, but that's not what we're required to look at. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, then on this same list, 11 and 12, I think are also like misplaced. Bullard Woods, old growth tree protection. And then
Yeah, support.
reduction of any residual septic tank nutrient loading. I mean, if that's not a water quality goal, that goes in a different category. So there's more to be done then. Things need to be moved around a bit.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Maybe we should divide this thing into 2 meetings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're not going to do this in one.
I was gonna say, maybe we should divide like whatever page, whatever is the last page divided by 2, or whatever you feel is the point. Yeah,
We've got half of it.
because
So-
we won't be helpful after a certain point.
I know. But I figured if we can get through some. Yes, Sally? Is that you?
No, Roxanne, it's Anita Schwerner.
Oh, hi,
Um,
Anita.
Hi, Roxanne, committee. I'd like to comment on number 4 on page 23. I don't think that belongs as the 4th priority. And I think that we've spoken about that before, about the herbicide.
Well, we just talked about those 4 things don't even belong in this section at all.
Yeah.
I don't think belongs in the report at all.
This is not,
Targeted herbicide treatment.
this particular page, Anita, is referring to water quality goals. And so those first 4 things that are in red, those just need to be lifted out of here along with whatever those last 2 are. So those are that's coming out of there because this section is talking about water quality goals.
Okay.
Okay, can you share your screen fully on the report?
Well, I can't seem to move this over and I don't know why. Let me see if
There's something underneath that's showing from the town website.
hang on.
You can also go to the town website, Anita, and download this PDF.
I have that also. I'm just going back and forth. Thank you.
There you go.
There we go. Got it.
Hey,
Very impressive.
There we go. Anyway,
thank you.
anyway. Okay, let's see. And then I think there was another section farther in, a lot of this. Then we go through the maps, pollutant loading, estimated, yada, yada, yada. So you got maps, charts. Let's scroll down this.
Because to me, the rest of the stuff was not
Yeah.
debatable type of thing. It's
No,
just
that's
facts.
another section though that was real interesting that I think I made notes on.
Can I just follow up a little bit on what Anita said about the use of herbicides? Is Percellacor has not yet been approved, to the best of my knowledge.
It's been approved for Massachusetts. It hasn't been approved for Stockbridge Bowl.
Right, but I think that that statement indicates that maybe it has been, and it was not in the original filing, and it was approved by DEP.
Right, I'm not sure why that's in there, Sally. I'm not sure why that's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's coming out, and like you said, it's certainly hasn't even been applied for. We haven't even applied for a permit at this point, so I don't think it should be in there. That's, a future topic. Anyway, then we've got all this page here, which is page 40. And So here's where we need to, this is what I really wanted to cover, was where some people can go out and come back with some information. Sewer expansion plan, obviously sewer and water commission, and Mike, you'll be involved in that.
We're,
On page 40.
I understand where we're at. You know, we've got phase 3 and phase 4, the study is going to determine that. That's a year and a half out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so we're not coming back with
All
that.
they want is a generalized statement about what the intent is.
Yeah, we
Where are we
can
at?
do, we can do a
It's
statement,
not
basically what
specifics.
we just said.
It's not
We're
specific.
in the middle of a
It was the word plan I was hung up on.
It says if any, I realize it says if any, but what they had asked when Steve was here
Yeah.
is he said, no, you just need to, put together your intention.
Right. And I would add to
Want
this
to hear
list.
that you're talking about it, you're planning it, you're gonna come up with a 5-year, a 10-year, a 15-year
Right.
plan,
We
whatever
can
it is you're
certainly
gonna
do
do. Let's see, septic replacement plans, similar, okay?
Yeah,
Stormwater improvement. I mean, Patrick, you're involved with MVP, and so that's something maybe you.
The plan is bigger umbrellas. No, I'm kidding. We're doing a culvert replacement. It's all about the culvert assessments that we're doing now. I can write up a paragraph on that.
Significant land use changes, there aren't any planned, but these others, stormwater improvement and highway road improvement.
Culvert
and,
and survey.
Also de-icing would fall.
What does
under
that mean?
this.
salt.
So,
They use.
Oh, I see.
yeah, so this
not
is
a plane.
something for Mike Canales and Hugh Page to hash out and to give us something back in terms of,
Yeah, and I briefly talked to Huey about that, and all the new trucks that we're getting are coming with really high-end
Monitor.
salt monitoring, so you can
Yeah.
yeah.
know
Which we're putting on
how
there.
many pounds are going out per mile of road.
Right.
They can adjust it and not overuse of salt, so that's a big deal.
Right, and there could be
Good.
some discussion about, do we not use salt in certain areas?
Yeah.
I would worry, like the causeway, just because it does get really slippery. It blows there, and so there's, the road can always be covered and then it gets packed.
Yeah.
So to completely eliminate it, but that maybe you use a.
I'm surprised no one's thought
heavier
about snow
component.
fencing there, but, it seems like it's a blowing area.
Yeah, definitely.
The snow fence would be a
Yeah.
cheap way to fix
It's
that.
scary. If I go to work that way, it's
Yeah.
scary in the winter.
You gotta get it out on the ice, that's the trouble.
Oh, you want to get,
And the water flows there, so it's not all ice.
It's really unsafe out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are pieces that the next meeting, we can come back with some of this, and you can send it to me ahead of time too.
okay.
I can run it by Steve Roy if it's adequate. Additional, same as above. So dredging project plan and de-icing. Here's de-icing. It's down below here. And that's Hugh Page. So I can talk to Mike Canales and Hugh Page and see what they can put together in terms of verbiage for these, their applicable pieces. Dredging project, Michael, Nathan, we gotta talk to Greg.
Yeah, I think Greg needs to be part of this discussion. And Pat, were you going to?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question because it goes back to your earlier one. The first sentence here says, or second sentence, approximately 76,000 cubic yards. When I add up what's on the map, I come up with 64,000 cubic yards, and I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, 64 was really the number we always had come up with. Between 50 and 60, 50 was basically the outlet. Here it says 56,000. I'm just throwing out because you can't be exact
Right.
with silt,
Right.
But basically it wasn't 20. Well, all I'm trying to get to, it was, I don't remember it ever being 20 unless it was in the LICOT or whatever thing originally, and I just didn't remember what that figure is. But I just wanted to be consistent unless it doesn't matter.
Right, and
It doesn't matter, then
consistent between here and the next
Yeah,
map.
but we're talking probably if we do the outlet, and the beach and the causeway, you're talking probably 70,000 cubic yards, but it doesn't have to be done all at the same time. That's what they had agreed, NHESP.
So, I mean, I think now we're coming up on an hour. We've gotten through 40 pages, not too bad.
No.
I would say we come back together with some statements about this page in particular. If we can just give them verbiage about what our intent is. on these various bullet points. And I will be in touch with Steve Roy in the meantime. I can, I can plug things in that we've discussed.
What I would like to, what I personally would like to see is our priorities stated more clearly by them of what we have rather than under, here he lumped it with, in that when he put it, he lumped it with water quality. And it should have, many of these should have a different title. Like, health of the lake or, whatever they deem, not just it's not just about the water.
Right, no.
Yeah. I know we're repeating what we agreed to before, but I find it so important. We've been working so many years to make sure NHESP sees our priorities.
And I mean,
Sometimes-
frankly, we haven't had this that long and I haven't had that much time.
Yeah, no, while we're here in a discussion,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
I think we all just
Yeah.
like really can drill down on this and see if we see anything else that's missing and anything else that needs to be reorganized. And I agree. It's like, there's a difference between water quality and, our specific plan of attack for
Right.
various
Right.
issues that we have.
Right.
So,
Fine tune why these are the issues. I don't think they have that right either.
right, okay. So I think we're up to an hour. The one other thing that I've got here that I printed out, and Sally, I can send this to you. But I printed this out, the Lake George Eurasian water milfoil management report. And I think it's really interesting to see the level of detail that they go to, and probably something that in the future we look at actually tracking or recording, documenting where we see the stands of invasives.
Yeah.
We've done it for the water chestnut with Tom Coop going out. So but it's really interesting to take a look at like the level of detail. They have a huge body of water, but it's really pretty cool, some of the stuff they do.
I just want to, are we done with the lake management plan as of now?
Here.
Okay, I just want to go
With
to,
everybody.
can I go to just a different?
Sure.
Are we doing harvesting? That's the next on the list.
Oh, no, I just want to say that, again, I think it's so important for us to put photos of whatever invasives we want to be on the lookout. I know we've mentioned it, but how do we get that done? And we should be putting them at wherever boats are launched, or give them to the associations so people can put them. Because if we're really hit with this chestnut issue, we really want to get it as early or contain it as much as we can possibly contain it.
Yes.
So the help of everybody on the
I
boat.
already have a document. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I got the map
Is that okay?
well, it's huge. So I need something that's 8.5 by 11.
Shoot the camera and get it down there.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah, the other thing is I got
I'm
it.
working on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Also, in regards to that, I talked to Mike Canales. We can find the money in the budget to, I can just buy, Dropbox type of
Yeah.
stuff that we can.
Yeah, even if it has an email on it where people can just send an email to.
Right.
Or create an email that's just, the other thing is,
Anyway, it's in progress.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just,
SBA has
since,
all that
yeah.
information, all the email address. SBA could
But,
send out a big email to all the members about.
oh, sure.
Yeah, but the thing is, they got to know what I have no idea what we're looking at still.
Remember the picture you sent me, and we were, from the outlet, we were looking, they wanted to know if it was water chestnut.
Oh, yeah.
What ended up with that is with an app called Picture This, we took a picture of the picture.
Right.
And it told us what weed
Right.
was. So if we have people send us stuff, we can identify it literally.
Okay, well, put that in your email.
Yep.
Send us a picture of whatever and then we'll know.
And then we can identify
Sure,
it with that app.
sure. But, right, the other thing is I got a request from one of the zebra mussel monitors that somebody fell on the
Cement.
Yeah, they want a slippery ramp.
slippery ramp, and if we could put 2 signs. I sent an email to Pat, to you. I
How
said,
do we paint the actual? ramp
And,
itself.
You know, we have so many damn signs down there.
yeah, no one, right. Well, that's what a
Like, we
request.
paint the ground, yeah, like the, you know.
When it gets wet, it gets wet. It's, the
Well-
signs aren't gonna,
My job was to get that message to whoever.
Are there any
You know?
strips we could put down, you know, like kind of like anti-slip strips?
now, you know what happens? The airport mix gets down there and it gets kind of slippery underfoot.
Well,
Okay.
anything that's submerged in water that's kind of smooth is gonna get a little.
All right.
bit,
Right.
yeah,
There's nothing you
it's
can
just
do.
Common sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's keep going then.
All righty, so, discussion of best path forward, regarding the weed harvesting. So right now, we have an NOI. We are limited to what we can do. It is recreational. It is limited to a maximum of 10 acres. However,
Analyzing.
also in addition to that, there is a map where it shows us where we can actually do weed harvesting. And I wanted to discuss going forward because we have other options. And Pat and I had lunch the other day and she brought something up in that in certain areas, on the eastern shore, certain communities, there's a lot of boating activity. That boating activity is going to drive through the water milfoil and it scatters it. You know, there's significant there.
Fragmentation.
However, you know, another alternative in conjunction with weed harvesting is hand pulling. So you may have areas where it makes sense to hand pull, and then you have areas where it makes sense to you run the harvester. What I think one of our goals should be is certainly getting that NOI updated so that at least it's discretionary as long as we're within that 10 acres, because we don't know where the problem areas are going to be from year to year, you know, at any point in time. So I wanted to discuss that with everybody and see is there, and start looking at some of the things like George is doing, because I think they're doing multi-pronged plant management,
Who's doing it?
like George.
Oh, Lake George. Uh-huh. I think that you always want to attack where the problem is, just to give us a map like we did last year,
Right.
you know, and there might not be anything there.
The reason for the map was
Yeah.
because there was the ongoing herbicide project and we had to avoid certain areas.
You
So we
did,
were
but
constricted.
that wasn't the 10-acre limit cause. That was just.
No.
because of the
Oh,
way-
no, I'm not.
No, about where we could go.
Right.
Where we could actually go.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is we may need to do over by the causeway a lot more or a lot less and more somewhere else. And we don't know at any point in time what's growing where.
So we'll only know that, oh, I apologize, Patrick.
First of all, I think that your idea on hand pulling could absolutely be applied to milfoil, and there's absolutely no reason not to do it. I think you're right. In some communities, they do hand pull the milfoil, and it's a great idea because it take out by the roots and you can, you know, get rid of the stuff. So I think it's not an either or though, because in the same area where you might have some milfoil, you might have one of the other 24 plants, and you're probably going to want to harvest those. So, you know, I think that the sort of, the math is very challenging because like the outlet is 4,000 feet long. The cutting width of the green monster you've been riding around on is 10 feet wide. All right. So that means that just one pass down is an acre. An acre is about 40,000 square feet. So one pass down the outlet, just one, not even coming back. Let me finish. One pass down is 1 acre. All right. There's a lot more width down that outlet than just one pass, not even coming back up. You got a whole area in the cove. You got many areas which are 2 or 3 or 4 widths wide. You've got easily, just to cover the cove, the outlet, you've got easily 4 or 5 acres in need. All right. Then you've got what were the test plots, 7 or 8 acres between all 3 test plots, which are all in the littoral zone and which all could be harvested. And then you have another, because there was only one pass down that was in the permit. So of the other 7 acres that were in the current permit, you have 7 there, you have 8 there, and you have at least 4 or 5 there. You're up to 20 acres. All right. So I think it's like very helpful for us to not, that's why kind of this whatever it's called, LICOT report is so important because it makes a water quality argument for harvesting, because it's the best way of taking phosphorus out of the lake according to LICOT. So it's not just about nuisance. It's about reducing phosphorus, which is one of the nutrients that are being loaded. And I think that if we're gonna try to get up to 15 or 20, and I don't care if it's discretion or not discretion, I mean, that's great, that we should really rely on this. And it's discussion of how it's the by far most cost-effective way to remove phosphorus from the lake and how that will improve water quality. And by the way, it's also good for recreation. That's a nice
Well,
thing.
last year I sent to the select board, to Roxanne and to Michael, the reason why when you have lilies and you have vegetation shore to shore, like almost you have in the outlet, how unhealthy it is for the water, how it raises the temperature, how it does so many things that were negative. But I had a whole report that I sent because it was before the harvester. I was trying to give maybe some ammunition for NHESP to realize that the harvester in certain areas is necessary for the health of the lake.
We have a scientific study that bolsters the question of phosphorus and harvesting. And I think that these anecdotal things are great, but if we found out anything in the various discussions we had in the last 5 years is that anecdotal evidence is not always, well received. I'm making a joke. But we have a report which talks about how harvesting is the best way to take phosphorus out of the lake. And I think we can use that, to craft this improved NOI that you're talking about.
Well, but I don't think that necessarily the focus should be on how many acres. I think this is a much larger discussion. So I think we take this up at another meeting. The other thing that you have to keep into consideration is the natural habitat and how much harvesting is too much harvesting. One thing that we have seen over the last several years is one thing we haven't done is any drawdowns. We have crystal clear water. And we haven't had that much Eurasian water milfoil. Well, we haven't done that much harvesting. It's been limited. And maybe we've done ourselves a favor. I think we should consider that because it hasn't broken up the plant and it hasn't been able to disperse. So I think we have to be cautious in that and really have an in-depth discussion about this and how you weigh and where is the sweet spot with harvesting and how do you combine that with other control methods and look to places like Lake George that have pretty sophisticated, quite frankly, lake management. Very sophisticated. It's pretty impressive. And I'm sure there are others out there.
Did you send that to?
This one I did, and I sent you something else. I printed this one, but I can send this.
Just curious, yeah.
Let me just make sure, because this seems like a significant change in what the goals I understood were. I mean, we talked about trying to significantly expand harvesting to provide relief to folks as one of kind of our key goals. Like the past few months, that's where I thought we're going. And then I'm hearing these, but I'm not just finished.
She's the president of the SBA. This group did not discuss that. The SBSC has not discussed this until today.
It's just
Okay.
Lake George.
I would only point out then that there is no scientific evidence that just because we did not do as much harvesting or we did not do drawdown, there's no evidence that the lake quality that we have now is caused by those factors. And it's a whole study if you want to actually provide us scientific evidence. There's no, there's no evidence. We don't know why the lake is doing better. I agree it is doing better. We just don't know why that is. And to blame it on harvesting is jumping to really hasty
I
conclusions.
didn't blame it on harvesting, and I'm not jumping to a conclusion.
You just said it's not cutting it up.
I said maybe that has contributed to it. I don't know that for a fact scientifically, but I think it's something we have to consider. And I think we have to be careful in terms of how far we want to go. And do we want to combine it with other forms of plant management? That's all I'm suggesting, that we have an in-depth discussion about this in the future, not at this meeting. I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the?
Yeah, one last thing. I thought you brought up a very good point about that we should be harvesting not off a map, but where it's necessary. And we'll only know that in the spring. Is that when? So next year, we should almost do the same thing that we did when we did the Eurasian milfoil, of getting somebody out there to see where this milfoil is, and then go back and saying, okay, these are the areas that we're going to do, and then add up all the acreage or whatever it is if we're still under that 10-acre.
Right. Well, and I don't believe in like reinventing the wheel. That's why when I went out actually to look for the Asian clam, which I think is what you were referring to, I went out to Lake George looking for other invasive species, okay? And then I was impressed by the amazing sophistication of what they're doing. So I think it's worthwhile to look at what they're doing in terms of how are they documenting this year after year after year. And they appear to be tracking exactly where the invasives are growing, and it's documented every year. So they know what that shift is. And they're watching to see, I'm sure, probably to see if there's any patterns to that growth. But at any rate, I just thought that was interesting, and I think it's something we can discuss at a future meeting.
You know, we've done harvesting for 40 years. And I would think that's also a test of, I mean, they're concerned about the snails and everything like that. And there doesn't seem, according to Tom Coote, seems to be any reduction. I'm just amazed that we're not pushing that part. I know they use the excuse, NHESP, that it's two projects being done at the same time. But right now it's only one project, which is the harvester. But 40 years of doing this is sort of and the snail count hasn't gone down from.
Actually, I think I saw in one of these studies that the snail population had gone down, but I can't tell you where I saw that.
No, it was like they found the shells in the outlet.
Yeah, they found shells in the outlet, but they weren't sure when the reason. But there are many fewer snails in the southern part of the lake than the main area is the northern part of the lake,
And
by
the survey
far.
was done at the end of their life cycle. That was the whole point. It wasn't valid.
But anyway, it's just a point to bring up, as 40 years ago. I don't know how much more testing you need.
Well,
Also,
it's up to us.
No, I understand. I'm just
The thing
giving
that we
some.
didn't do is drawdowns. We've been harvesting the last 2 years and the lake has still continued to improve. You know, the thing we stopped doing is drawdowns. And if you're looking for a cause and effect, you know, I think that it's much more likely drawdowns than harvesting.
Well, I'm just pointing out that there are other methods of control, and maybe we want to consider a multi-pronged approach. That's all I'm saying. So, but I think it's a bigger discussion.
One last thing is the chestnut. What's been the conclusion? Did you get
I don't have a report back.
you don't have a report?
No.
Okay.
So that was.
I just have a comment about the drawdown and not doing it. One of the reasons why we did not want to do it was because we were seeing a decline in the population of the freshwater mussels. And the freshwater mussels are known for their capacity to clarify the water. So I wouldn't dismiss that as not germane.
Right. Thank you, Sally. Okay.
That was the biggest reason that NHESP gave us, was one of the biggest reasons. Exactly what Sally, what you're just saying.
All righty. So we don't have Jim Willis with us today. Let's see. Mike Buffoni, do you have an update from the water department on your testing?
No, just, we'll be going out this month to do our sampling. We haven't picked the date yet.
Okay. But reasonably second, third week?
Yeah, usually third or fourth, actually.
Okay.
We're done doing.
Okay. John, water and sewer?
No, I have nothing.
Okay. Stockbridge Bowl, Michael Nathan?
Well, we have an annual meeting tomorrow,
Okay.
being presented by our president. And I hope everybody who can come will come. Right. Unless there's something else you want me to, no, you commented last.
11 o'clock at the mount tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Patrick?
No, it was an interesting meeting yesterday on the Josh Beckett report on that at the next meeting. Other than that, thanks for everyone's hard work.
I just have one more comment. This is Sally again. I put in the chats a link to that from the New York Department of Environmental concerns or whatever it is. Anyway, it has a wonderful and very detailed description of the water chestnut if you're interested. So it's in the chats. It's a link.
Okay, thanks, Sally.
Did you send that on, Sally?
I sent it to you, Michael, and I sent it to Roxanne. in
Okay.
Email, but
Thank you.
It's in chat.
Right.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Should we pull it up?
Well, I think,
There we go. There it is. Like screen share? No. Maybe we won't. I think everybody's getting antsy.
yeah, it's 9:20.
We're over an hour. And I don't have any additional updates because we've already talked about that other thing is in progress, putting together some kind of a notification for people to watch for the invasives. Gary,
Business as usual at the boat ramp.
everything's good?
Everything's fine.
All right, great.
Great group you got.
Well, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thanks, Roxanne.
Roxanne, thank you.
Good meeting.